Hello, everybody. My name is Lauren Campbell. I'm with Utah Public Lands Alliance, and I had the pleasure of being with Rachel Toker from Utah.gov, the Department of Natural Resources, the grants. And she's going to talk to you today and answer some questions about the grants program. Utah has a very aggressive grants program available for outdoor recreation, and it's another great reason to live in the state of Utah. So, Rachel, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what kind of staff you have with
Y-
the grants program?
Yeah, so my name is Rachel Toker. I manage the OHV Recreation Grant. We somewhat call it OVER. It was formerly known as the Fiscal Incentive Grant or FIG. But so my grant, that's the grant that I manage, but we actually have a grants and planning team within our division of outdoor recreation. So they manage a number of other grants for us as well. We have the UR grant, which is the Utah Outdoor Recreation Grant. We have the LWCF, which is the Land and Water Conservation Fund. And then we have a federal grant, which is the Recreational Trails Program grant, also known as RTP. And something else within us is we now have a planner to help people kind of work their way through grants, as well as other pretty much big endeavors for the state itself. So that's what my team's composed of. Um, but yeah, we are proud to say that we offer about $18 million total per year within our division for grants.
Very good. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, definitely
That's a lot of
is.
shoveling.
Yeah, a
Um,
lot of
wh-
shoveling.
where does the money come from? I think that's probably something that people are curious about.
Yeah, so I'll go into which where the funding comes from for each grant. So my grant, the OHV Recreation Grant, it comes from OHV registration dollars. So when you register your machine, a portion of that funding is put into a pot where we allocate $3.5 million from that pot of funding annually. As for the UR grant, it comes from OHV tourism sales tax or like the transient room tax. That's where they pull that funding from. So their grant is more focused on kind of tourism, bringing people, creating projects and trails that will bring people to the state. And then for RTP or Recreational Trails Program, it comes from our state recreation tax. So based off of our gas tax. So they pretty much take a small percentage of the gas tax, equate it to how much recreation we have, and then we get a percentage of it.
Okay,
So yeah.
very, very good. Well, that's a, when I've looked at the program, it looks pretty complex. And it's a little bit confusing with all the scope, but I think probably one of the best things is for OHV users, what kind of projects do you approve with grants? And I think probably rather than tying it to a specific grant program, just kind of give us an overview of the types of projects that are funded.
Yeah, so we do a lot of like recreation infrastructure, restoration type projects, trail work projects. We have the ability to have funding for search and rescue, as well as snowmobiles and tourism. So generally, the main overview of our all of our grants are pretty much building things, building either trails or infrastructure or just like recreation abilities for different people. So that's pretty much what we have on our plate is really just building things to allow and promote tourism to our state.
Okay. And you also provide some funds for for education as well, correct?
We do. So we also have funds for education. There's a small portion for, there's two grants that cover education. And then we also have access protection as well within the grant that I manage. So kind of all over the place, but pretty much if you have a project, we probably have a funding solution for you.
Okay, great. And I'm having an interview with Plipco next week.
Mhm.
So I assume you work a lot with Plipco on access.
Well, so that's actually kind of something that we're looking to do more so of. Um, Clipco is now within our Department of Natural Resources. So we want to kind of work with them closely, especially regarding access protection. But our main purpose is to make sure that they're aware of our ongoing issues within the community, as well as us working together so we're not doubling up on work. We're trying to make sure that we're being efficient and also being as informative with them as possible.
Okay, very good. Now I know with every government institution, it seems like the only time that people get really excited or involved is when you get close to a deadline, and you've got some deadlines coming up here pretty quick. Why don't you tell us kind of what the deadlines in the grant cycles are, and maybe go into how the grants are actually approved?
Yeah, yeah. So my grant itself, we have a opening date of February 1st, and then it closes March 31st. RTP, I believe it's February 15th to May 5th. And then for UORG, I believe it's January 18th to I think it's March 18th. I I would need to look into that one, but
Okay.
generally we try to make sure that they're open for at least 2 months if possible. What's nice about this is all of our grants kind of close around the same time. So especially if you're trying to match grants with other grants within our division, we kind of allow for that flexibility and that coordination within our different programs.
Okay. Very good. And, it is complex. So how do people navigate the system? How do you get started? I understand you got a training class coming up online next week.
Yeah, so we have a training class this coming Monday. It is from, I believe, one, sorry, it's from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's always free. All of our training courses regarding grants are always free. So in there, we'll talk about kind of how to get started, kind of rolling the ball in your mind, kind of like trying to decide what's going to work for you when it comes to the different grants. So what I tell people is usually when they have a grant or an idea for a grant, is to kind of think about who, what, where, when, why, and how. And we work together very closely. So especially if someone reaches out to us regarding a grant and they're like, "Hey, I have this idea. Where do I go from there?" We can kind of guide you in the right direction. But our grant workshop tour goes into what each grant has, what it can and cannot do, as well as kind of working those grants together. And we like to call it almost like braiding grants together for funding. Um, so yeah, it can be a little confusing, but we're working on our website. We're working on trying to clarify on things. We also have two different program guides for our division and our grants. So if you're interested in that, I can also send you some resources as well to send out to users. But definitely attend one of those workshops.
All right. And do you know how people register for the workshop on Monday?
Yeah, so I can send you a link, but
Newsletter. Got it.
yeah.
You have a
So,
newsletter.
yeah, sorry about that. So we have a newsletter for our division, so you can kind of see what's going on, and that's usually where we promote all of our events. So it is registered through Eventbrite, but I can send you the link to that. But I recommend people sign up for our newsletter to kind of see what's going on within our division, as well as what's going on throughout the state as well. Send out
Okay.
about 3 a
Very,
month max, so it's not too overwhelming. But we always are kind of trying to think of different workshops that we have.
very good. And one thing that I was kind of interested in reading about one of the grant programs is they're actually evaluated by an OHV advisory council.
Yeah,
Do you want to kind of talk about that? Because I think that's kind of interesting for people that are in the community.
yeah. So there's two different grants that are evaluated by the OHV Advisory Council. My grant, the OHV Recreation Grant, as well as the motorized side of the Recreational Trails Program grant. So our OHV Advisory Council is composed of, I believe there's 12 representatives. They're volunteers. So we have some different federal agencies. We have some different state agencies like SITLA, and we're now going to have a seat for PLIPCO. And then we also have just different user groups that specialize in different things. So what they do is they're on an advisory capacity. So they'll go through, they'll make recommendations for grants, they'll score things, but pretty much they are like the reviewers, and ultimately they usually get the final word when it comes to grants. So even when you're applying for these, it doesn't hurt to reach out to our advisory council. They'll generally reach out to our applicants if they have questions regarding grants. So they're a great resource to have. They also are nicely specialized in different areas. So usually if a question arises, I use them as a resource for others as well.
I probably should have brought this up earlier, but I think one of the things that was very interesting to me is that you also have money available for other land managers, such as BLM or Forest Service, so that if they have a trail project, and we're all fighting to try and keep trails open, and sometimes it's a lack of money. The federal agencies sometimes have no money to bring in a grader or um, to do work, and they can get money through your program as well. So have I got that pretty correct?
Yeah,
I'm
so I think all of our grants federal agencies can apply for. I know the grant that I manage, we allow federal partners or federal agencies to apply for funding. Um, and then also with one of our other grants is, I believe one of the grants within a grant allows for federal partners going forward this cycle. So what I like about our division is that we're always trying to see what works and what doesn't work and make it so that we can help everyone.
all right. Well, very good. Thank you very much, Rachel, for your time today. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the class next Monday. And I hope a lot of you out there will also join and sign up for the class. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thank
Everybody
you so much.
have a great weekend and have fun on the trails.
Thank you.
Together, we will win. But we can't do it without you. Learn how you can help at utahpla.com/help.